Mother from Cambridgeshire, who stabbed her two teenage daughters to death as they slept, was in an abnormal mental state and may have been retaliating against men.
Rekha Kumari Baker has admitted killing the girls, 16-year-old Davina and 13-year-old Jasmine, at her home in Streatham near Ely in 2007. But she is denying murder on the grounds of diminished responsibility.
Well, our reporter Matthew Hudson has been following the case at Cambridge Crown Court. Matt, I gather the defence started their evidence today.
Yes, that's right. Throughout last week we listened to and reported on the prosecution case, which is that Rekha Kumari Baker is indeed guilty of the murders of her two daughters. Well, the prosecution concluded this morning, and now it's the chance for the defence to set out its stall. And today they did that by calling a psychiatrist who testified to her state of mind as he saw it at the time of the two killings. Inside the mind of the woman who stabbed her daughters a total of 68 times. Today, Rekha Kumari Baker's defence team began to lay out their case that she was mentally unbalanced when she killed them. Expert psychiatrist Dr. Lyle Hamilton said hers was a rare and complex case and added he was convinced Kumari Baker was mentally ill at the time. Dr. Hamilton said he believed the defendant had been suffering from somatisation, a condition where serious mental anguish is masked by physical ailments. This, he said, would explain her many visits to her GP. He also believed she felt a need to retaliate against the men in her life, including her ex-husband, who she believed had let her down. She killed to get even with these men, or with men in general, or with life, he said. But the doctor faced tough cross-examination from prosecutor John Farmer QC. He admitted that no other psychiatrist who had assessed Kumari Baker in the days and months after the killings had seen any signs of mental imbalance. Mr. Farmer put this to him. Since around 2:30 on the 13th of June 2007, there's nothing to suggest any abnormality of the mind, any disease of the mind is there. Dr. Hamilton replied, not that I'm aware of. Kumari Baker admits killing 16-year-old Davina and her 13-year-old sister Jasmine by stabbing them repeatedly as they slept. But she denies what she did at her home in Streatham near Ely in June 2007 was murder on the grounds of diminished responsibility. The jury has already heard that Kumari Baker bought the knives used to kill the girls from this Cambridge supermarket the day before they died. The prosecution has suggested she wanted to spoil the happiness of her ex-husband David Baker, and a new relationship she had formed had ended weeks before the tragedy. The defence will continue its case tomorrow.
Well, Matt, I suppose considerable interest in who else is likely to give evidence in this case.
Indeed, Jonathan, I'm sure everyone involved in it has wondered to themselves whether Rekha Kumari Baker herself would give evidence in her own defence. Today, we learned via her barrister that she will not be doing that. Now, the judge, Mr. Justice Bean, spoke to the jury. He said that this was something that she was quite entitled to do, but he said that they were quite entitled to draw whatever inference was proper from her decision. Now, there will be more evidence because the defence chose to call a psychiatrist to talk about her state of mind, and the prosecution will be doing likewise. They'll be calling their own psychiatrist to try and rebut the evidence that we heard from Dr. Hamilton today.
OK, Matt, for tonight, thank you very much for that. Now, there have been further disruptions to the region's postal services today. Staff at delivery offices in Cambridge and Norwich walked out as their row with Royal Mail over jobs and pay threatened to escalate.
All this is against the backdrop of possible government spending cuts and union warnings of unemployment rising above 4 million. Malcolm Robertson reports.
Liz Plummer wasn't sure she'd receive any mail at the Norwich office of Lee's accountants today, but it arrived pretty much at the usual time, despite a 4-hour strike by postal workers in the city this morning. The walkout is one of a series of local stoppages, among the others today, one in Cambridge, amid fears it could escalate to a national strike. Although much of the work this accountancy does is now online, lengthy interruptions to the postal service will have an impact.
This could have potential implications in terms of penalties for our clients, and also the level of delivery of service that we can provide to our clients.
The Communication Workers Union claims Royal Mail has reneged on a national agreement and says staff could be out of pocket by up to £70 a week.
We're up for modernisation. We're happy to talk about that, but we need to do it within a framework of national agreements with both sides sort of working jointly together to achieve the end goal.
In a statement, Royal Mail said, the union keeps saying that it recognises change is inevitable and it claims to support modernisation. So why can't it bring itself to get on with creating a successful future for the company and its people instead of hurting customers, damaging the job prospects of its members and ignoring the reality of increasing competition, especially from email and the web? There's the possibility of further strikes, and next week the region's rail passengers could be severely hit by a planned strike involving the rail drivers' union ASLEF. A number of 48-hour stoppages have already taken place. Could these local disputes be a prelude to industrial action on a national scale? Well, the Secretary-General of the TUC says that's a distinct possibility, and he's also raised the spectre of unemployment rising to more than 4 million. The Cabinet has to decide in what areas public spending cuts will have to be made. While the health service is unlikely to be touched, ID cards and the Trident nuclear missile system could be under threat.
There will be pressures on spending once we are safely through the recession. The Prime Minister has said more than once that cutting the deficit will mean tough choices.
The choice facing those working in the postal service is quite straightforward. On Wednesday, postal workers will start voting on whether to back a national strike, with the result expected early next month. Malcolm Robertson, Anglia News.
Now, the footballer John Hartson has spoken movingly of his fight against testicular cancer.
The striker, who started his career at Luton, went on to play for clubs like Arsenal and Celtic and had a spell with Norwich City. Now he's warning other men not to ignore their health until it's almost too late. Jim Rice reports.
As a footballer, he never shied away from a battle. But this, by his own admission, is John Hartson's biggest battle yet. John allowed ITV's cameras to film his latest treatment of chemotherapy. It's only 2 months since he underwent major brain surgery, spending 5 weeks in intensive care.
Obviously the big C tends to sort of be very frightening to anybody, I suppose. But there's lots of people suffering, and you know, I've learned so much about the disease now.
For the first sort of couple of weeks, I'd wake up in the morning and it was almost like, is this actually happening? Yes, it is. Oh my God, you know. Yeah, it's been difficult. It's been a very difficult time.
John agreed to his first TV interview since being diagnosed with testicular cancer, so he could say thank you to all the well-wishers who've sent cards and messages from around the world.
I think one of the main reasons why I wanted to speak out about this was because of the amount of support I'd had. I just didn't want to particularly keep quiet and let people keep guessing on what's happening with John.
At home with his daughter Lena, John says he's now focusing on the arrival of his new baby in the spring and a possible wedding to partner Sarah.
The plan is to get married as well. We were going to get married anyway. It's nothing to do with the fact, you know, we've been together now for 5 years, so we were going to get married, and just gives you something to look forward to, I think, as well, you know.
The strength John's showing now was evident in the teenager who earned a dream move from Luton Town to Arsenal back in 1995. He first noticed a suspicious lump when he was still playing top-level football. He played for 4 more years, including a spell at Norwich City, before having it checked out.
I definitely left it too late, and I would urge any young man out there, or any man, if they do have lumps in their testicles, to go and get them sorted out, go and get them checked out. Don't leave it like I did, because, as I said, I nearly lost my life over it.
John knows there's still a long road ahead of him before he can think about recovery, and that for a man who's lived most of his life in the public eye, this battle must ultimately be a private one.
I don't think the people on the outside actually will ever the people on the outside won't actually ever, understand how close I was, to losing my battle.
John Hartson there with his very powerful